Once upon a time, I was young. And when I was young, in the year 2000, I joined a small startup company with a silly name called Google. It is true, by the way. I was an engineer, but in my own defense, I was young and I needed the money. In 2007, when Google was a little bit less small and I was a little bit less young, I led the creation of a mindfulness-based emotional intelligence program in Google called Search Inside Yourself. It became a very popular course in Google. And then in 2012, I felt that SIY, Search Inside Yourself, was good enough to be open sourced. It was good enough to be used outside of Google. So I wrote this book. At the same time, with Google's blessings, I co-founded an institute, a non-profit institute, to make SIY available to the world. Based on my experience 12 years ago of joining a startup with a silly name, we decided to give this new institute a silly name. Literally. We decided to call this institute Silly. Which stands for something actually. It stands for the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. When we founded Silly, we decided not to stop at mindfulness. We decided to go full Monty. Figuratively. Towards fulfilling the full potential of mindfulness. So we give ourselves this mission statement, which is, all leaders in the world are wise and compassionate, thus creating the conditions for world peace. This is our mission. Thank you. And now we felt good about ourselves. However, we harbored a dirty little secret, which is that we left wisdom and compassion undefined. The main reason is because it's hard. It turns out to be very hard to find a consensus definition for wisdom and compassion. Furthermore, one can argue that wisdom and compassion are a little bit like porn. You know it when you see it. So you don't have to define it. But of course, I'm an engineer. That's not good enough for me. So, if you will indulge in me, I would like to share with you my current thinking on how wisdom and compassion may be defined. And please know that I may be wrong, because I lack sufficient wisdom, and please give me compassion. About wisdom, my current working definition is this. It is clarity and insight that enables you to know what's best to do. And in my opinion, there are three parts to wisdom. The first part is this. It is the ability to bring the mind to a state that's calm and clear, and to do this on demand. Calm and clear mind on demand. Which, by the way, is an important leadership ability. Right? In a crisis, when everybody is panicking and you alone can calm the mind and think, then you will be perceived correctly as the leader. Because part of leadership is the ability to think under fire. So this wisdom ability, this wisdom faculty, is by itself a leadership faculty. The second part of wisdom is clearly seeing, is self-awareness, which means clearly seeing my moment-to-moment state of mind and emotion, knowing my resources, knowing my weaknesses, and understanding my inner joy and inner affliction. And this is a type of self-awareness that leads eventually to self-mastery. And the final part of wisdom is this. It is insight. The insight itself is a process, not an object. And because it is a process, it is therefore insubstantial, ever-changing, and unsatisfactory. In other words, the wisdom to see beyond self. So, in my current thinking, I think this is wisdom. So what is compassion? My working definition of compassion at this time is suggested by this guy called Thupten Jinpa. And he says this: Compassion is defined as a mental state endowed with a sense of concern for the suffering of others and the aspiration to see that suffering alleviated. So that is compassion. And again, from an engineer's perspective, I think there are three components to compassion. The first is beautiful intentions. I think there are three beautiful intentions. The first intention is the intention of harmlessness, to do no harm. And for those interested in technical terms, ahimsa. That's the first beautiful intention. The second beautiful intention is the intention of goodwill. And the third is the intention of generosity. And I think generosity is so important that in Sili, it is our prime directive. Our prime directive is radical generosity. These two words guides every decision we make in the organization. So these three intentions, in my opinion, they are very beautiful, but they are merely intentions. So obviously there's more. The second piece of compassion, in my opinion, is loving kindness, which is defined as the wish for others to be happy, which can be practiced merely as a thought. Does anybody mind doing a 5-second experiment? Very easy. For 5 seconds, randomly choose somebody in this room and just think to yourself. Just think, don't say it out loud, just think. I wish for that person to be happy. Okay? 5 seconds, beginning now. Thank you. Did you notice that you were happy when you did that? Yes. The thought of loving kindness does something really important, which is it creates inner joy. This is the joy that is born of kindness. And it is beautiful by itself. But more importantly, it becomes an initiating and sustaining factor for compassionate action. Because in my opinion, compassion cannot be sustained unless it's based on inner joy. And the inner joy is best if it comes from kindness. So that's the second part of compassion. The third part of compassion is compassionate action. So not just having an intention, not just having a thought, but acting. This is when kindness becomes sufficiently strong that it evolves into true compassion. And true compassion compels you to take action. It is a compulsion. And most eloquently outsaid by this person. Her name is Vivian Ha. When she was 10 years old, she told the Dalai Lama this. She told the Dalai Lama, compassion is not compassion without action. And Dalai Lama said, yeah. I was there. This young lady, by the way, she raised $100,000 to free child slavery by selling lemonade for an entire year when she was 9 years old. It's really amazing. Talk about compassionate business. This is it. So my friends, this is my current thinking of how wisdom and compassion may be defined. Wisdom, 2 for the price of 1. Like compassion has 3 qualities: calmness, self-awareness, and seeing beyond self. And wisdom has 3 qualities. Compassion has 3 qualities, which is beautiful intentions, loving kindness, and also compassionate action. And all 6, in my opinion, are born of mindfulness. When you practice mindfulness correctly, it creates the conditions for all 6 to grow. Right? So when you practice mindfulness, the first thing that happens is you learn to calm the mind and you learn to deepen self-awareness. And when that happens, self-awareness penetrates into the ability to see self as a process and therefore see beyond self. And when you also practice mindfulness of beautiful intentions, those intentions eventually strengthens into kindness, and the kindness evolves into the compulsion for compassion and compassionate action. And therefore, mindfulness is a foundation of wisdom and compassion, in my opinion. Which leads us to an important question. What has this got to do with business? I think everything. Because I like to suggest that business at its best is about helping people. Business is about feeding people, giving them rice, giving them bread. It's about clothing people. It's about providing people with goods and services. And of course, it's about giving people the access to the world's information and all of the world's cat videos. At its best, besides cat videos, at its best, business reduces suffering. If what I just said is true, my friends, then business is at its best when people in business practice wisdom and compassion. When people in business practice wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness, business functions best, serves best, and get the most rewards. And let me end by telling a story of one of my friends and co-workers. Her name is Dolores. She sits in this audience, but I don't think she wants to be pointed out right now. Yeah, she's shaking her head. Yes, I can see her shaking her head. So Dolores is my co-worker, and she's highlighted here in a textbook about leadership. And she's that good. Some years ago, not so long ago, Dolores first became a people manager. And then she received her first feedback on her performance. And she found out that the words that her people used to describe her are, let me see, supportive, caring, calm under pressure, and compassionate. And when Dolores read that feedback, how did she feel? She was embarrassed. Not just embarrassed, she was disappointed. Why? Because she was hoping to be described as visionary, strategic, driven, the words that are used to describe typical successful leaders that we read about in the news. Fortunately for us, because Dolores is an authentic leader and she is a practitioner of mindfulness, she took one of the early classes at SIY, she decided to stay true to herself. And therefore, she continued to remain caring, calm, and compassionate. And then, something happened. Dolores started to notice that she was consistently receiving very high performance feedback ratings as a manager. And the other managers keep coming to her and say, your team is on fire. Right? Your people, they set ambitious goals for themselves, they achieve them. Your team is so innovative, your strategy is so clear. Like, what happened? How do you do this? Dolores found herself to be a successful leader running an effective organization. So what Dolores learned is a lesson that countless generations of great leaders have learned before her, which is that the best leadership is not about the leader. The best leadership is about the team. The best leadership is about helping the team to thrive, to shine. And in order to do that, the leader has to help individual members to thrive and to work well with each other. And in order to do that, outstanding leaders practice wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness. So anyway, my friends, when in doubt, get silly. If you have any questions, please feel free to talk to my silly crew. Where's my silly crew? If you're silly and you know it, clap your hands. Okay, over there. If you're silly and you know it and you really want to show it, no, just kidding. By the way, it is true, right? In order to work for me, you have to want to be silly. Particularly, look for these three folks. So Carrie is director of bus deaf. She deaf buses. If a bus needs deafing. And my friends, I hope that this was useful to you, and I hope that together, working together, we can create a world where all leaders are wise and compassionate, thereby creating conditions for world peace. Thank you.